Unger here, coming to you for the final time, at least in this format, from my office on unceded territory of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh. This is Ask an Astronomer, and since this is Ask an Astronomer, I am going to introduce, also for the last time, just a few doors down from me, is the enigmatic, the
The
incomparable, uh,
enigmatic.
hailing to us from the Badlands of Alberta a couple years
Yeah.
ago. That is Marley Leacock. How's it hanging?
Hello. It's great. It's good. That was quite the introduction. That was
I had to come up with something,
it's
this
on the
being,
fly too. There you go.
our final show. And I should say, final show in this format, because Marley, you are going on to become a teacher. You are leaving us. This is like your, I guess, your second to last day officially working
Yes, it
here.
is. Second to last. Tomorrow's my last day.
But I should mention that we do have a new astronomer that you have been working with for this past week, and that is Rosanna. So if you come and check out some of our events that we have coming up, we've got lots coming your way. Go to our website, spacecenter.ca. You'll be able to meet Rosanna. But of course, this show has really been you, and of course, our previous astronomer, Rachel, that have really kind of like locked this down, started during the pandemic this way to connect with the audiences remotely. It's been really cool to get to reach you, the audience out there in many remote places, including your family, Marty. They've been able to watch, my family down in Australia watch these shows. So really fun and really great to evolve this show over the years.
It has been fun. It's been a neat little adventure, a good every 2 weeks to do it. And then when one of us goes on vacation, scrambling to figure out how we're going to do it or trying to not go on vacation when Ask an Astronomer happens. But it's been fun. And we've had a lot of fun guests on the show too in the past, which has also been really fun. So,
Yeah. So for this final show, what I thought we'd do is that we'd really I told Marley, this is your chance to answer all of those questions that you have not been able to answer, perhaps some things that you have been bottling up that you just want to get out there. This is your last chance as an official space science communicator to get what you want out there into the public. So, Marley, you've got a little bit of a presentation for us. And of course, if you are out there watching and you need to get your burning question for Marley, you can put them into the chat and we will answer all of your questions before we hit the half-hour mark. So Marley, what do you got for us?
well, I first wanted to start with I'm leaving before this event happens, our big drag event, which we've been
Right.
doing every year since I've been here, which has been a lot of fun. I'm not working the event, I'm not there, but I have been helping put together the visuals that our digital media producer Millie has got together, and they look awesome, and it's really cool, and it's a fun event. And so I wanted to put this first to be like, first and foremost, come out to this. It is 19 plus,
Mhm.
so it'll be a little different from last year's, which was a family event. So this will be, I think, really fun and a great way to kind of, I think, kick off like the end of the summer, the beginning of the end of the summer. So come on out, check it out for sure. A lot of work goes into it, and it looks really cool. And kind of can't see this form of drag show anywhere else because we've got the
Absolutely.
dome.
It's going to be very visual. It's going to be more music than ever before. It's really going to be something to behold. So definitely come and check that out tomorrow night. I'll be working the bar, so if you want to come on by
Yeah,
for a nice little drink.
yeah, bother Michael at the bar. So I want to get that out of the way because this was like a more serious, because it gets deeply unserious the longer it goes. Because Michael did not say, talk about, he said do whatever you want. And I took I took that very literally. And so, because I am leaving, this is a little ode to
Oh
me.
no.
That I
What?
made just to see Michael's response to it. Because one of my favorite parts of this whole thing is making things just to see what Michael will do, because he's so good at being off the
You're
cuff. So
not
this is
dying. What?
no, but
This is
this
so
is so
morbid.
funny. It's hilarious. It's the last ever Ask an Astronomer with me. I'm leaving. There's Emily. All right. So
Hmm.
the theme of this whole thing that I came up with was, questions that I hadn't been asked or questions people had asked me that I wanted to give like my specific answer to, but had to do it a little more tact than I otherwise would have. So one question I get a lot working here, and I think a lot of people in the space sphere or people who do science communication specifically for space stuff is asking us like, you must really want to go to space so bad. Like you studied it. I spent 4 years of an undergraduate degree
Mm.
learning about it. You must want to be an astronaut. Kids often think I'm an astronaut, which is really funny. And there's this big assumption that like I must really want to go to space. I don't at all. I really don't want to go to space at all. There's one very specific exception that can never be met just by the nature of it. But I've never been interested in going to space. Honestly, it's always kind of freaked me out. And so I wanted to talk about a little bit about why I've never wanted to go, to kind
Hmm.
of highlight why the people who do go are some of the coolest people in the world. Like to be
Yeah.
able to be okay with all of this and still go to space is mind blowing to me and something that I can't comprehend. They're a very special group of people. So going to
including
space,
including
including,
Bob Thirsk, who just sent us a
yes,
card the other day. Canadian astronaut legend Robert Thirsk. Shout out to him.
shout out to him. I saw him give a talk once in Calgary. He's a really cool dude. So going to space, there's pros and cons. Pros, I've got weightlessness seems kind of cool. You can experience that in other places. So I don't know if that's worth it. Canada
Is
Arm
this like
2
the
is
new
up
diet
there.
phase, the weightlessness that you can go into space?
Well, I just feel like it would be kind of cool to feel that because I can't really you can experience it for like a second or like a millisecond on a roller coaster, right? When it goes up the loop, but you're kind of freaked out because you're on a roller coaster. There's a lot more happening. So that floating around kind of feeling seems kind of cool, except for the fact that you'd always be congested, which is a huge negative in my opinion. The Canada Arm 2 is up there, like on the ISS. I would love to see that in action, like from the International Space Station. That is one of my favorite pieces of robotic technology, the Canada Arm. It was on our money for a while, which was pretty awesome. And it's just cool. And then you get the whole cosmic perspective, which is something here that we talk about a lot. This idea of seeing Earth from a perspective that not many people get to see. And the like the overview effect of learning about how fragile Earth is and being able to actually see it from that perspective. Because here, on the ground, you don't necessarily see or recognize in your day to day that we're on a planet that's moving through space, like
Mm.
around a star. Like there's so much going on that we have to deal with here. But when you're in outer space, like when you're in the space station looking down and you see like you're removed from it all. And what you see is your home just there in this like vast, because you can't see stars because it's too bright. The sun's too bright. So you don't really see stars. So it's just this marble sitting in black and you can see it. You're moving around it and you see different countries, but you can't necessarily always tell what country it is. Like that would be very cool. There's just a lot of negatives really in the process of getting to that point, right?
Okay.
So being in space because you're weightless, and we've talked about this before in the context of living on the space station, is that because you're in a weightless or microgravity environment and you're feeling weightlessness, everything kind of floats, right? So that does mean that all of the liquid in your head floats, and so you feel congested because it's all up in your sinus. So you always feel like you have a stuffy nose. And the second I get a stuffy nose, I want to like lay down and never do anything again. So that's a big deal. Like your muscles begin to atrophy. Like space is really hard on your body, right? You
Mhm.
are not working against the force of gravity to maintain any of your muscles. Your bones lose density. And this one, you're like strapped to a bomb to get up there. Like the rocket launches are very, very violent. We've been doing them for a very long time. So we've really worked out the kinks. But I don't like the idea of being strapped to something filled with hydrogen, liquid oxygen. I don't even like to fly very much. So this is bad for me. The ISS itself, like we see pictures of outside the ISS or we see pictures inside of the docking ring where, everyone's happy. It's very cramped. It's very small. There's could be lots of people, like up to 13 people up there at once. It's very, very cramped. There's open wires everywhere. It does not seem like my idea of home. Their whole washroom situation, don't like it at all. I'm a big fan of what we've done with modern plumbing. I don't really want to go in space. And the big drawback for me is there's no breeze, right? There's no way to open a window and get a fresh breath of air. Like I would really miss that. And I
Mm.
also have a horrific fear of heights. So that being that high up while being able to see the beauty of the earth would freak me out a lot. So there's all these negatives, which we try to not talk about because the pros are very, very cool. But for me personally, no, the one special exception, the one special circumstance is if my safety is guaranteed, which is difficult to do because there's always risk. There's always inherent risk with spaceflight. And you can see that, right now with the Starliner astronauts who are still up there, who were only supposed to be up there for 8 days and now they're
Mm.
still on the space station. I would say they're stranded, others would not. Uh,
Is there a big ambiguity about the word stranded?
they don't, well, because The reasoning is from Boeing and both NASA is that they're not stranded, they're in the space station. And if they need to leave in the event of emergency, they could get in the Starliner and come back. But the problem with the Starliner spacecraft is that a large problem is that they don't know why the thrusters turned off in the first place. This has been a big ever-going issue, is that when they first launched, the thrusters turned off, 5 of them went offline, they got 4 back. But the entire time, like this, I think it's been 75 days now that it's been on the ISS, they have not been able to figure out why those thrusters turned off. Now, the risk is that if they were to undock, come back to Earth, is that those thrusters could fail again, and Butch and Suni would not be able to get the Starliner spacecraft into a proper orientation for re-entry. And if that happens, they either burn up, is an option, which is awful, or they kind of skip off of the atmosphere of Earth and are now stuck in orbit around Earth, right? So both bad. So to me, that still says stranded, because your options are, you know, terrible events on the ISS or terrible events in this Starliner capsule.
So,
you know,
so it's kind of like you're on an island that has like your escape shift that is on like another island. So you're not technically stranded because you could just swim across to that other to your escape ship.
yeah.
But the waters are dangerous, so you may
Yes.
die on the way over there.
Yeah, that's kind of, yeah. So there are plans, like they're still working on it. They were supposed to have a conference this week, but I don't think it ever happened, about if they figured out what they're going to do. Most likely what's going to happen is they'll return in 2025. So they will stay on the space station until a Dragon X, or like a Dragon capsule, a SpaceX capsule, is able to go up, collect them, bring them back. That does push their return to February 2025. And it does kick 2 astronauts off of that slated trip, right? So there's space for them. They can't come back on the current one because their spacesuits are not compatible with the Dragon capsule, which is another problem with the commercialization of spaceflight, which I didn't really get into because that's a much longer conversation. But there it is.
We got a comment from Isaac, is that he says they're going to make so much more money on their book tour once they come back.
Oh yeah, I was actually talking with Rosanna actually, and I was like, "What do you think the hazard pay is?" Like, being up on space, it's not a safe environment. I mean, we do our best to make it safe, but humans are meant to be here on the ground, so it is very, you know, what's the hazard pay? But either way, I'm not one who would go to space. I would if my safety was guaranteed, which is difficult to do, as we said, and I get to do a really cool experiment. Like, I want to go up there for a scientific reason. I get to do a fun experiment. Has to be maximum 3 months or a minimum 1 month trip. I'm not going for any of this 5-minute weightlessness nonsense. If I'm having that amount of risk, I'm spending a while, but not too long, because I will go a little insane.
Okay.
This is another planet, really shifting gears. This is another question I get a lot. What is your favorite planet? I have never been asked what is my least favorite planet, which I wish people would ask me, because I feel like it's fun to kind of rag on the planets a little bit. That being said, my least is Mercury. I really, no, don't awe. I really don't care for this planet. And it's nothing it's done like, I don't have any personal beef with it. It's just like, out of all the planets, it's hard to find something cool about it, right? Like Saturn, rings, super awesome, hexagonal storm. Jupiter, great red spot, super cool, very fun. Earth, we're here, only planet with life as far as we know, easy. Mars could have had life, also had one of my favorite robot pairs, Spirit and Opportunity, so that's an easy win. Venus has that intense pressure, like only 2 things have ever landed on that place, and it crushed them really quickly, which is very interesting. Uranus and Neptune, like one, you know, rolls on its side, and the other actually is like got these really, again, ring systems and tons of moon, and still not fully explored. Like, they are more interesting to me than Mercury, which is just a bad version of our moon, I guess. Like, it is very small. So Mercury, these are all the downsides. It's the closest to the sun and not even the hottest, which is like, all right, Venus beats it out because of that dense atmosphere. It's allegedly the cause of everyone's problems, which, you know, really is a lot. And it has a really annoying orbit. Its orbit is very, very frustrating. There's a whole mission, the Bepi-Colombo mission, that's run by ESA and I believe JAXA. And its whole thing is to get into orbit around Mercury. But to do that, it has to orbit the sun like for several years just to build up enough speed to be able to enter Mercury's orbit around Mercury, because Mercury is going so fast and because it has a really weird resonance going on with its orbit and where it is with the sun. And it's just like there's so much gravity happening there for this tiny little rock that just happens to be close to the sun. So everything gets thrown out of whack, right? Like it's like you can't even explore it easily. It's so
Yeah.
okay. So Mercury's orbit is really squished. It has an eccentricity of 0.21. So eccentricity measures like how circular an orbit is, right? 0 being a circle and 1 being like oval or like really squished, like an egg. It has a very extreme, because of the eccentricity, it has an extreme distance change. So at its closest to the sun, it's 46 million kilometers away. At its furthest from the sun, it's 70 million kilometers away. So it is quite the large shift between the closest and furthest approach. 1 year is 88 Earth days, so it is whizzing around. But it's in a 3-2 spin orbit resonance. And what that means is that it rotates 3 times on its axis for every 2 revolutions around the sun. And it's nicely locked in that state. We once thought that Mercury was synchronously locked with the sun, that being, so one side of Mercury always faces the sun, similar, like, we also call this like tidally locked almost, but not quite. It was just locked with the sun. We thought that in the past was when we were observing Mercury at the best times for observation, which not often, because it's so close to the sun, can't even view it. Again, another downside. It was always showing the same face. But as it turns out, it was just in its same point in its 3-2 resonance. So it always appeared to look, we always saw the same face of it. And we thought, oh, it must be locked. But it just turns out it just happened to be in the same time in its resonance. So we always saw the same thing. A solar day on Mercury, so that measures like the sun to sun, is 176 Earth days. Yeah, you'll remember that 1 year is 88 Earth days. So like weird. And a sidereal day, which is the period of rotation, is 58.7 Earth days. So it's, for such a small world, it's so unnecessarily complicated. It's, I think, a lot of my issue with it. It also has the precession of its orbit, the precession of its perihelion, which has to do with general relativity. And general relativity like makes me nauseous. So that's just another downside to it. Really cool for people who are really into it. I'm just not into it at all. So I don't really.
Well, here's what's interesting about Mercury from a planetarium standpoint, because
Sure.
when I first started working here at the planetarium, we would have shows, which we still do, about the solar system. It's kind of like your standard planetarium show. Let's talk about the planets. Why? Because planets are special, because we live on a planet. We want to learn about the other planets. However, from the time that I first started coming here to the planetarium in the 80s to now, we have discovered so many more things that are perhaps more interesting in our solar system than the planets. And that would be the moons of Jupiter. That would be moons of Saturn. That would be some of these asteroids. Like, you could probably make a case that there are some asteroids that are more interesting than Mercury, right?
Oh, easily. Psyche, Bennu, like there's tons way more interesting than Mercury.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe Bepi Colombo, when it finally gets into orbit around this rock, will give us something cool to learn about. But it's just, you know, it's even like talking, like doing the solar system, especially with young kids who come to the planetarium. It's like, here's Mercury, and then it's like, what's a fun fact I can give you about this? And it's like, not much. So no offense to all of the Mercury scientists out there. I'm sure there's something about it that you could tell me is pretty interesting. Needs better PR, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And there's that classic meme about the kid that goes to the planetarium, and when Earth came up, he booed. Because it was his least favorite planet, because he lives on it, right? We want to know about the weird worlds, and from what you're saying, Mercury's just not weird enough. We need, or it's too weird, but not in the kind of way that
too weird in the wrong ways. Yeah. It's weird in an annoying way. Earth is weird in an interesting way. Like, why are we here? Like how life start, the water question, all of that is very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have nothing
Okay.
kind to say about this planet.
Oh
Moving
boy,
on.
just just
Yeah.
a just a beat down, just like an absolute beat down on your final show here on Ask an Astronomer.
It's a real it's you said do whatever you want, and I
Yeah, yeah.
said, all right. This is another question I get all the time. Do you work for NASA, the Canadian Space Agency, the European Space Agency?
Mm-hmm.
I get this a lot because I've noticed, and I try to not do it as much. When I present science, I say we, but I say we in terms
Yeah.
of we, the scientific community. But that does make it seem like I work for these organizations.
Mm-hmm.
I do not work for
Mm-hmm.
them. Um, unless in
Oh.
about 24 hours, I will be unemployed. So if any of them, people who work for them are watching,
Yeah.
hey, I will be somewhat available. Not, we'll make it
Well,
work. We'll
and
make it work.
now here's an interesting thing about this is that NASA is a American government agency. However,
Yeah.
they are kind of elevated to this other status because they are doing global work, right? They have
Yes.
done some of these like amazing things for the people of this planet. So they have kind of like become a very interesting organization that just happens to be funded by American taxpayers. The same thing goes for the Canadian Space Agency and the European Space Agency. And the work that we do, even though we are a nonprofit, we are also serving kind of like the same goals, which is why we get calls when NASA or the Canadian Space Agency are doing stuff out there. Because we're just the easier call to make, but also we are science communicators, and quite often the science communicators that are working in those agencies just don't have the time to talk to the local news agencies. So I totally get how it may seem, like we do work for these agencies because we are basically promoting them.
Yes.
It's just that we're not selling so much a product; we're selling, exploration
Yes.
and curiosity and all of the things that we advocate for. So, so the one sticking point here, I wasn't sure if I was going to bring this up because someone did ask. I don't know who it is, but their name they changed it to R.A.P. Marley. Um,
Okay.
but they asked like, "What's your thoughts?" And don't actually have to get into the thoughts on the person that shall not be named. The person that is part of a large private space company.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so, because there things get a little bit more complicated because it is a for-profit company.
Mm-hmm.
However, it is a company that is doing a lot of very innovative things that we end up having to talk about. And because even though there are more of these companies than just one, they are just the one that are doing it the best, to be honest,
Yes,
right? So
they are.
so how have you approached that? I suppose like that's the question I want to ask you, given the complications, separating yourself from perhaps your feelings about the person.
Well, when I started very early on here, I got really good advice from my previous boss, the previous director of learning here, who was like, you know, the engineers do really good work. And I
Hmm.
was like, that's what I'm going to say. Like the
Yeah.
engineers, the scientists, the people who actually build the product and deliver the product and put the work into the product are like, they are doing very phenomenal, very important work.
Hmm.
Um, the figurehead, it is just that, right?
Yeah.
Like you can say whatever you want, but the people who actually do it, I think, are the people who are I admire personally. So that's been how I've been towing that line ever since, really, is that I
Yeah.
really admire the work and the engineering and the science that goes into doing this types of things that
Hmm.
company does. And so it has nothing to do with that man.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the bigger picture
Yeah.
that plays in part of it. Sandy asks, would you work for any of these agencies?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Please. Oh, I would love to. I would love to. Like, I could take notes in meetings. It would be so cool to work for a space agency. I've always thought about it. I don't like math enough really to do all the engineering stuff. And
Yeah.
hey, if they need a SciComm person, like give
Hmm.
me a call, please. Also, this has nothing to do with it. The new CSA logo is sick. Like I love it. Like they changed it
Yeah.
last year. It looks so good. It's
Yeah.
really well done.
It's great.
Um, to get on a more lighter note,
Yeah.
What is your favorite space movie? I
Oh,
get asked this a lot because I think, well, people like, oh, you know space, you must have a favorite space movie. It's actually quite hard for me to watch space movies because I notice things that are wrong
yeah.
and inaccurate, and then it takes away from actually enjoying the movie. And
Yeah.
so there are two, I would say. There might not be the two people would assume, but you should be able to guess one of them. Obviously Armageddon. Is this a space movie? It deals with space. I would consider it. It's like the Die Hard Christmas movie, whatever. This deals with space. It's fun. It has a stacked cast. It's a phenomenal soundtrack. It's really fun. And it has one of the best lines ever, which,
Yeah.
is kind of my whole philosophy with, like, what are we doing up there?
Yeah.
I did a video, you weren't here with Matthew, about the science of some of the science of Armageddon. It's
Yeah.
fun. It's not scientific enough that it's just a fun movie to watch, right? I'm not like, oh, that's incorrect.
Yeah.
The other I really like is Contact. So I don't know what
Mm.
was in the water in the late 1990s, but everyone was making space movies.
Hmm.
Because Armageddon was 98, this was 97, and then there was Deep Impact also came out in 98. So
Hmm.
I don't know what's
Yeah.
happening. But I love this movie based on a novel by Carl Sagan. Him and Anne Druyan did the story for the film, and then the film got delayed, and so Carl Sagan published the book, like the novel, and then the film got made.
Hmm.
And it kind of deals with the evidence of extraterrestrial life and making contact and kind of that whole question and what that might look like. And it deals with Jodie Foster's main character works for SETI, which is the Search for Extraterrestrial Life Institute. I probably got that wrong, but it's a real organization. And they came out and said that there's some inaccuracies, but out of a lot of the Hollywood films, it's one of the most accurate about what the work they do and what
Hmm.
that looks like. And of course, Jodie Foster's in it. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
instant hit. But it's really good. It's a really touching film, probably because Carl Sagan was involved, and his ideas about space and space
Hmm.
exploration and life are like very human. I think the most human you can get to what that looks like. So this is also a really good film. Highly recommend. There is an actor in Contact and Armageddon that's in both of those films, which is
Okay.
really fun.
Yeah, well, that being very efficient because we actually got a question on Instagram from CE Guado, which is how accurate Armageddon is as a movie. So there you go. But we have a whole episode, right? And that's the one
Yes,
thing that we can say to people that even though we're not going to be live every 2 weeks, we've got years of work of past episodes that are there on YouTube. So go and watch
it
that episode with
is
you and Matthew.
accurate if you're Jerry Bruckheimer and like to blow things up, I would suppose. It's also just fun. It's such a good movie.
Yeah.
And that was kind of it. I have my last slide of introducing our new astronomer, Rosanna.
Hey.
She is super cool. She did her PhD thesis on the discovery and characterization of exoplanets. So people would ask me all the time, like, are you a planetary person? I'd be like, no, I like galaxies. Rosanna is your planetary person. She
Nice.
loves all things planets, all things exoplanets. And for the past week, like Michael said, I've been trading her, introducing her to the software. She was one of our interpreters before, so if you've been to the Space Center, you might have seen her around. And this is a fun joke that Rosanna and I have been talking about. This is what we've been doing. This is a Roche lobe overflow, which occurs. This is specifically a contact binary Roche lobe
Hmm.
overflow where material from the main body is being accreted by the smaller body. So this has been me and Rosanna the past week as I've been trying to meld all of my knowledge into her brain before I go. But she's fantastic. She's going to be great. She's a lot of fun. She loves SciComm. She loves
Hmm.
people's excitement about it. So, she's awesome. And I
Awesome.
wanted to give special thanks to people who've been tuning in the whole time. So my grandparents, Sharon, my mother, the people who made my job fun, like Matthew and Millie and Charlie. Of course, my Emily Cat, Lisa, the previous director, you, the viewer. And of course, I could not have done it without my co-host, Michael, who became one of my very good friends. And I will miss him very much. Huge nerd, very fun, does too much all the time, but could not have done any of it without him. So it's been a thrill. So thank you to everyone for watching, and that was the final Ask an Astronomer
Final
in
Ask an
this
Astronomer
format, or however we've been
in
saying
this format for sure.
it.
But yes, this is it's been an honor to do this show with you. But we got a few more comments that rolled in from Marley because of course you do have lots of adoring fans out there and lots of people that care about you. So we got a couple things coming here. from Jack from Alberta. We
Hey,
were
Grandpa.
able to witness the first photos from Webb as a family. Marley explained
Yes.
what was happening. What a treat to experience that with my granddaughter. Love A4. And you're
Uh,
gonna have to explain what A4 is.
A4 is the mirror on Webb. So one of them wasn't working correctly. It was the A4 mirror, and he decided that that was going to be named after him. So that's we between the two of us, that's his mirror. Jack is the segment A4 on the James Webb Space Telescope.
Also got this in from Joan, also from Alberta. I have loved being taught about the wonders of the universe from my granddaughter. What a blessing.
Oh, yeah, that's Grandma Joe. That's the one who sends you shortbread all the time.
That's right. And finally, from Lindsay F., also from Calgary. When Marley was a little girl, she had a model of the solar system suspended from the ceiling in
I
her
did.
bedroom. I
Yes.
always knew she would reach for the stars. She will make a wonderful teacher. I'm excited to witness her next chapter. Marley, I'm so proud, and you are so loved.
Oh, that's my mom, who I
Thank
cropped
you.
out of this picture, by the way. That's a picture of three of us, but I hid my mother because I didn't think she'd appreciate it too much. But yes, those are my
Yes.
biggest fans.
There you
Yeah,
go. Well, and that includes me as well, but
that
it's
does
not a
include
goodbye for
Matthew.
me because we're going to be hanging out.
We have another hockey game to go to.
That's right. The
Yeah,
those dang Bruins,
love them, love them, love them, love
I
them.
hate them so much,
If
but
I could, I would play Shipping Up to Boston by the Dropkick Murphys so loud right now.
I can't believe I'm going to a Bruins game. But thank you all so much, of course, for everyone that has watched all of these shows. There have been so many regular viewers, Keith and Pride. You've been here since the beginning. Like I said, we started Ask an Astronomer when we were in lockdown, and I was in my kitchen with Rachel, and it was really important for me personally, who lived alone, to have a way to connect with all of our patrons here at the Space Center. But like I said, we've got lots of exciting programs that we're going to be doing in-house for the next year. So check us out, spacecenter.ca, and come say hi and come say hi to our new astronomer. For the last time here in Astro Astronomer, farewell and see you again.